The 0-2 Carolina Panthers look to get their first win of the season against the Atlanta Falcons. We're here to preview it. Let's go.
Brace yourself for the ultimate Carolina Panthers experience. Welcome to Two Growls, One Roar, the podcast that hits harder than a Luke Kuechly tackle. We're diving deep into the heart of Panther Nation, bringing you unrivaled passion, insider takes, and pure gridiron fire. From Wilmington to the cosmos, this is your home for the fiercest football talk east or west of Charlotte.
Welcome in, folks, to another edition of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. If you're wondering why there was a delay this week on getting this episode out, it's just because Wi-Fi went out in our entire neighborhood for AT&T, so they're putting in gas lines. The folks that are putting in the gas lines, the contractors, cut AT&T fiber. So we didn't have Wi-Fi for 2 days. So there was no way to record. So here it is Friday morning, but this is what we do. We wake up at 5:40, we get this content out, and that's what we're doing for you guys. So if you are here and you have not subscribed or you don't follow on the podcast platforms, please do it. It's appreciated. With that said, we got to go fast today to make sure we get through this, maybe 30 minutes, a little bit less. We'll see how this thing flows. A little bit different than the last two previews, still the same content. But what we're having to do is do it all through PDF because I already created it. Like I had all this done while we were working offline through the hotspot. Unfortunately, I couldn't record through the hotspot. Wasn't strong enough to do all this. So this is where we are. We're going to get into everything in just a second. So let's go ahead and jump in. All right, Carolina Panthers and Atlanta Falcons. It is the home opener for the Carolina Panthers, who traveled to Jacksonville, then traveled to Arizona. Kind of a heartbreaking loss in a way, the Arizona Cardinals game, but here we are. We're now moving into week 3. I talked about worst case scenarios for the Carolina Panthers. Starting the season 0-2 was one of them. Starting the season 0-3, yeah, that's going to be even worse if you're a Panthers fan. So I hope that the Carolina Panthers figure out how to get this thing done. Now, we got a lot of changes to the Carolina Panthers roster that are going to impact this. We're going to talk about those. We're going to look at the injury report, get you guys up to speed. For the sake of this episode, considering we're playing a division rival, and welcome in Atlanta Falcons fans, of course, we love to have you guys here. We're going to glaze over the Panther staff, high level, just for those who may not be in tune. Dave Canales, of course, your head coach. Brad Idzik, the OC. Ejiro Evero, your defensive coordinator, and Tracy Smith, your special teams coordinator. For folks on the outside wondering, everyone here, as far as we're concerned, still looks at Evero as being on the hot seat, but I got to tell you, last week's performance was much better than what we've seen. We're hoping that can continue heading into this week. On the side of the Atlanta Falcons, I decided to abbreviate it this week instead of listing all 500 coaches, not really, but, all their coaches. We're taking a look at keys. So Raheem Morris, your head coach, offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, Jeff Ulbrich, your defensive coordinator, had quite an off season, as many people know, with his son. Special teams coordinator, Marquise Williams. All right, folks, let's take a look here, and I'm going to pull this up on a separate screen for my eyes because I do not have my glasses with me, so I want to make sure I get you guys caught up. So 1-1 Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons, tough week 1 loss to Tampa Bay. Very competitive game. A nice week 2 win against Minnesota, 22-6. This game is at Bank of America Stadium, like we mentioned. 1 o'clock kickoff. Head referee is Craig Rolstad. Panthers, of course, 0-2 coming off the loss to the Arizona Cardinals. The last time these two squared off was at the end of the season, which we're going to get into the series. The Atlanta Falcons, unfortunately, for Panthers fans, have dominated this series. During the regular season, Atlanta leads it 37-23. They've won 4 of the last 6. We know about Carolina Panthers' nice overtime win last year. Miles Sanders scoring the end, his last touchdown as a Carolina Panther. Raheem Morris His record as a head coach is 30-48, which is about 38% win percentage. Versus the Carolina Panthers, he is 4-5. For Dave Canales as a head coach, he is 5-14, about 26% win percentage, 1-1 against the Atlanta Falcons. As we mentioned, looking back over this series and taking a look at the last 5 games in the series, the overtime win last year was a big one for the Carolina Panthers. Then back in 24, 38-20, Carolina Panthers had a 9-7 win, and then that 25-15 win. I believe that was the Thursday Night Football. So kind of up and down. Falcons, though, pretty good. And, that stat that we just provided over NFL.com when it must have been before the last 8. I don't know. But anyways, that graphic that we just showed for you guys is directly from the NFL. And it does say they've won 4 of the past 6, but I don't see how that's possible because the Carolina Panthers have won 3 of them. So they're actually split. Anyways, doesn't matter. All-time series lead in favor of the Falcons, 37-23. It has been competitive-ish. That first game here for the Carolina Panthers last year between the two in the series, 38-20. Kirk Cousins was still involved. Now we have Michael Penix leading the charge. For those not in the loop on the side of the Atlanta Falcons, we'll quickly do this for Carolina Panthers fans who already know, but Tedero McMillan, every bit the part of a number 1 wide receiver so far, top 10 in the NFL in receiving yards, continues to shine. Has not scored a touchdown yet, but I think we're going to see that pretty soon. Should get more red zone targets. Nick Scorton still trying to find his role, slowly working there. There's a good opportunity or potential opportunity for him this week. We'll talk about that on the injury report. Princely Umamielen got his first sack of the season last week, got some pressure, so he's kind of starting to fall into his groove. Trevor Etienne, more of a returner when it comes to kicks and punts. That's how he plays into the skill set with the Carolina Panthers. Seeing a little bit on offense, but we're talking a few snaps, nothing crazy. Lathan Ransom trying to find his footing at safety. He also is starting to see a little bit of an increase in production from his side. I know Panthers fans would like to see him and Devontae Richardson more over Nick Scott. Cam Jackson, not too much going right now. Mitchell Evans, I believe 1 catch on the season. And Jimmy Horn Jr., who's pretty hyped for a 6th-round pick, not really seeing the field. Not seeing the field at all, actually, as he has been inactive. He's on the 53-man roster, but he has been inactive the first 2 weeks. We'll see. There's a lot to talk about with the wide receiver position for the Carolina Panthers. Hey, pretty close to home here with the Falcons picks and Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr., both the guys kind of getting into their own. And James Pierce Jr., man, by all accounts, pretty good week last week from what we could see. This tandem duo, 2 first-round picks, Atlanta Falcons investing heavily on defense, at least thus far from what we've seen. I think it's going to pay dividends. Of course, a lot of ball left to go. Also, Xavier Watts, the safety, Billy Bowman Jr. safety, and then they drafted a tackle, Jack Nelson, in the 7th round. So heavy defense, and the Falcons choosing to put a package together to get rid of their first rounder from this coming up next draft to move up and get James Pierce Jr. But by all accounts, hey, it's paying off, and the Carolina Panthers kind of did the same thing, but didn't put the package together so they get their outside linebacker edges in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. This one too, a little bit harder to read. So let's pull up my big view that you guys can't see. Last week we talked about it. The Panthers fall to the Cardinals despite a late rally. Carolina Panthers dropped to 0-2 on the season after a 27-22 road loss to the Cardinals. Panthers offense struggled to find a rhythm for the beginning. Falling behind as Arizona built their lead. Bryce Young and the offense showed signs of life in the second half, mounting a comeback. It fell short, scored 3 touchdowns in a row, got an onside kick. Defense played as well as they could. And unfortunately, that last drive for the chance to go down and take the lead. Didn't work. And the Arizona Cardinals pulled out the victory. The Falcons secured their first win with a dominant defensive performance. Falcons even their record at 1-1 with the convincing 22-6 victory over Minnesota. Got to see a lot of that game. Primetime TV on Sunday Night Football. Story of the game was the Falcons defense. Like we said, it was everywhere against the Vikings offense through this. Multiple sacks, got a few turnovers. Offensively, the Falcons were led by a strong rushing attack, efficient play from Penix. The win marked a turnaround for Atlanta after a narrow loss in the season opener, like we said, and provided a potential blueprint for success. Carolina Panthers are going to have their hands full this week with, at least on the right side of the line, from center to guard, with some of the changes that we'll talk about. Now, Panthers headlines for this week. The Panthers are desperate to avoid an 0-3 start, just like I mentioned. Now, at this point, we've assessed 2 games, and maybe we're saying maybe 6 to 7 wins is the mark. But either way, starting 0-3 is not the way to go. And losing a game in the NFC South, again, not that we are, at least in the month of September right now, thinking playoffs. There could be a day. Not forcing it on this team. However, this is a pretty big game. It really is. And it's going to continue to be, just because the pressure outside is going to mount. I don't know that it's going to turn into anything. Like I said, I feel like Canales is safe. There's just a lot of questions about the key personnel on this team heading into the offseason. We have some offensive adjustments for the Panthers in week 3. And what do we mean by that? Well, Austin Corbett gone. Cade Mays in. Think that's okay. And then the loss of Robert Hunt, which is very significant, paid him a ton of money to be on the right side of the interior. Really, really good player, Pro Bowl last year. Although, again, I always throw out Pro Bowl. I have to caveat that the Pro Bowl itself is just weird as far as voting and stuff. So it's going to be tough. Chandler Zavala stepping in. Chandler Zavala's had some injury issues. Carolina Panthers currently have 8 offensive linemen. Would not be surprised if they call up an additional offensive lineman, which means we're going to see some inactives and additional inactive potentially heading into this week. There's a lot of things. And honestly, considering the injuries, it may make sense and be an easier decision, but we'll get into that. Biggest question for me, can the Panthers avoid early mistakes? When you bury yourself into a hole, when you give a team a 7-point lead, a 10-point lead, when you fumble the ball in the opening drive, we talked about it yesterday. We previewed this on ESPN Wilmington, and we said the Panthers just need to get through the first quarter. And a kick is a good thing. And I think it's Bill Belichick's model, whoever's model it is, ending the drive on a kick, whether it's a punt, a field goal, or an extra point. That's perfect. That you want to end it with a kick versus turning the ball over. I mean, turnover on downs, okay, that's okay in some cases, but end it on a kick versus a turnover. That's the blast spot you want to be in. For number 4, the defense looks to keep the Panthers in the game and try to slow down Robinson. And I don't know that that's going to be possible. I would expect a big day. I do think the Panthers should see an improved defense continue to make some steps forward, but Bijan Robinson's a beast, man. He really is one of the best backs in the NFL. They've got a good one in Atlanta, so trying to slow him down. And then this is, like I said, the pressure mounts as the Panthers search for answers. I mean, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's middle linebacking core, safety, Xavier Leggett, there's a lot of questions. Bryce Young, even Dave Canales, you question all these things. The pressure is mounting in Carolina. And again, I don't think it's the end of the world pressure, but if you ever paid attention to, a storm warning that's coming in, you get the alerts on your phone. I think we're kind of in the watch period. So the watch, nothing's happening, but hey, you better be prepared because it's coming. And then the warning, it's here. So we're getting close to that, but hopefully we'll power through this. For the Atlanta Falcons, trying to get above 500, 2-1's a great spot to be in. As you look, talking about number 2 for them, for those that are watching, can the Falcons defense dominate again? I mean, they've got an opportunity to do that this week with their pass rush. Atlanta Falcons looking to prove that week 2 was not a fluke, that what they put together, and shout out to their kicker who just came off out of nowhere, straight money. I think 5 for 5 on field goals. So good for them from that standpoint. I know Eddie Pinheiro also was in the mix to potentially sign there, and he decided to go to San Francisco. But Falcons are trying to prove themselves. Like I said, you go back to week 1, tough loss to Tampa by 3. You're now putting yourself in position, I think, to firmly say, hey, we're the second best team in the NFC, and potentially we're going to compete with Tampa Bay, which is where I know the Carolina Panthers fans want to be. So it's a big win. Would be a big win for the Panthers. Can the pass rush stay hot? Like we said, coming off of that performance last week, we're starting to see it come together for the Atlanta Falcons in the whole defense itself smothering. So what is that going to look like? There's going to be some opportunities for them. And can the Falcons capitalize on a weak offensive line and then the focus on Tedero McMillan? What I mean by that, so offensive line, pretty self-explanatory. We've talked about the state of the Panthers line. The focus on Tedero McMillan is, hey, we know where they're likely going to go with the ball now because we just haven't seen enough from these other guys. Hunter Renfrow a little bit, Bryce and Tremaine a little bit, Xavier Legette not at all. To be fair to XL, you go back and watch some of the pass attempts that went to him, they were terrible. It goes down on paper as a pass attempt, but it was like Bryce Young skipping the ball to him. So we'll see. And all this week, that's been the talk. And in Carolina, around XL or the Carolinas, is he going to figure this thing out? So we'll see. I do still have faith. Again, I'm not one of those that's going to sell out on him not being able to figure it out. But we'll see as we get into this. Hey, this is an easy slide this week. Taking a look at the standings. Bucks, of course, 2-0. Why wouldn't they be? Put up 43 points. They've allowed 39. The Falcons are 1-1. They've scored 42 and allowed 29. Like we said, pretty good defense. They are 0-1 at home and 1-0 on the road. Panthers and the Bucks, two teams that started on the road for both of those. Of course, the Bucks winning both. I mean, that's important. Carolina's 0-2. You can see there most points allowed. Just not great. And then the Saints at 0-2 as well. So, upcoming schedule for the Carolina Panthers after the Atlanta Falcons, you'll have travel up to New England to take on the Patriots. Again, these are winnable games. Dolphins at home. We saw the Dolphins battling with the Buffalo Bills. Few mistakes. Maybe they're a little bit better than we think, but 0-3. Then the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to be a takeover at BOA. Traveling up to New York to take on the Jets. And then, boy, oh boy, we got the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo's still looking the part, but with Miami being competitive against them, maybe it's a sliver of hope. But we'll wait till we get there. For the Atlanta Falcons, they have the Commanders after the Panthers. That's going to be a good matchup, tough matchup. Speaking of tough matchups, then they get a bye, very early bye week. I hate the early bye weeks, not just for us, but any team. Feels like you really need that at the midpoint or later. You know, let's get some football underneath us because that thing's going to be important for recoveries. Get into this. Coming off the bye, they'll take on Buffalo, then the 49ers, then the Dolphins, and the Patriots. So some crossover between these two teams over the next 5 or 6 weeks for the schedule. Points per game right now for NFL Pro. Panthers putting up 16 points. The Falcons putting up 21. Point differential plus 13 for Atlanta. Negative 21 for the Carolina Panthers. Records in close games. Both of the teams are 0-1. I mean, technically last week wasn't a close game until it was. So average margin of victory, 16 points for the Falcons. Panthers 0 because they have not won a game. Negative 3 turnover differential for Carolina. They turn the ball over a lot. Plus 3 for the Falcons. That's second in the NFL. One positive number of penalties for Carolina is 11, which is 5th. But right behind them, the Atlanta Falcons have 13, which ranks 11th. Now, this one, again, a little bit harder to read for you guys. So we go to the big version for me so that I can get you guys up to speed. We usually go out to the website for this stuff. Couldn't do it this week. And I had already made all this. We're just going to use what we have. We talked about the points per game. Carolina Panthers defense is allowing 26.5, which is 23rd in the NFL. Falcons offense putting up 342 yards per game, 10th. Carolina allowing 335. Let's get that correct. It's not 33, 335, which is ranked 22nd. 5.1 yards per play average for the Falcons offense, 6 yards per play for the Carolina Panthers defense. Third down conversion rate for the Falcons, 40% on offense. We've actually done pretty well on third down, 38%, which is ranked 13th. Red zone scoring, that's been a problem for the Falcons in percentage of touchdowns. So 28% of their red zone trips have resulted in a touchdown. Panthers, on the other hand, have allowed a touchdown 44% of the time. So there you have it. Shifting our focus to the Carolina Panthers, we talked about 16 points per game. That's 29th in the NFL. Falcons, really good defense, 14.5 points. Number 2 scoring defense right now. When we talk about these averages and where teams rank, I don't think you get a true read until you get through 4 games. 4 games is a good enough sample size, in my opinion. You maybe could make the case for 3, but 4 games in, you've seen this team for a quarter of the schedule. Okay, now you can really start to tell who this team is going to be. Yards per game, Panthers putting up 300. A lot of that had to do with the passing attack last week. That helped them because week 1 wasn't great. That's 22nd. Falcons second in yards allowed, 229 per game. So this is a good defense, folks. Yards per play, 4.4 yards per play for the Panthers on offense. It's 29th. 4.5 yards per play for the Atlanta Falcons, which is 4th in the NFL. Panthers red zone, we'll get to red zone in a second, but Panthers third down conversion rate, 43% on offense, 13th in the NFL. Falcons allowing it 44% of the time, which is 21st. Red zone scoring touchdowns, Carolina Panthers at 60%, which is 15th in the NFL. The Falcons are at 50%, which ranks 11th. So there you have that. We'll get into some insights by NFL Pro. I posted a few of these earlier in the week, but wanted to read through them. Some nice tidbits previewing this game. So Drake London and J.C. Horn. Let's talk about this matchup. So Drake London has recorded a 30.2% target share this season. That's the 11th highest in the NFL, with 78.9% of his targets under 10 air yards, the 6th highest among wide receivers with a minimum of 10 targets. J.C. Horn has been targeted on only 9.8% of his coverage snaps. That's the 8th lowest among quarterbacks with a minimum of 50 snaps. And on those targets, he's allowed a negative 14.8% completion percentage, below expected. 6th best in the NFL. Dude's fantastic. Really good cornerback, and I think he's allowed 7 or 8 total yards in the whole season. Again, 2 games. Let's talk about Bryce Young. Bryce Young has found success on short passes under 10 air yards this season, generating 270 yards, which is the 6th most in the NFL, 4 touchdowns, which is tied for the most, and under 10 air yards, and the 6th highest success rate on those attempts with 56.6%. Young has fared worse throwing the ball downfield over 10 air yards, posting the 2nd lowest completion percentage, 32.4%, while failing to throw a touchdown and recording 2 interceptions on those attempts. So getting the ball downfield has not been great. Bijan Robinson, let's shift our focus to the one and only Robinson, has forced the 4th most missed tackles, which is 13, and generated the 3rd most missed tackle yards with 87. Robinson has maintained his tackle breaking ability throughout his young career, finishing in the top 3 in both missed tackles, forced, and yards after missed tackles in 2024, after ranking in the top 7 in both categories as a rookie, so the trend continues. And let's talk about the one and only James Pierce Jr. versus this Panthers offense. Falcons rookie edge rusher James Pierce Jr. has recorded the 5th highest pressure rate, 24.1%, in the NFL this season, with a minimum of 25 pass rush attempts. Pierce recorded 7 pressures, second most by all rookies behind Abdul Carter. Panthers left tackle Josh Deisman, that's where he's lined up, and Ike Ekwonu have collectively allowed the second highest pressure rate, 19.2% in the NFL through 2 weeks. So there you have it. A lot of havoc to be had. Now, Ike Ekwonu hopefully just getting settled in. Josh was thrust in there as a backup. So we'll see. Your projected numbers here, 230 yards for Michael Penix with 1 touchdown, 12 rushing yards. Bijan Robinson with 91 rushing yards, 26 receiving yards. Drake London estimated to get 74 yards in the air, 5 receptions. Darnell Mooney, 4 receptions, 59 yards. Kyle Pitts, 3 for 44. Sounds like a pretty successful day for the Falcons offense, according to NFL Pro. For the Carolina Panthers, things slow down a little bit for Bryce Young in their projections. 197 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Likely 1 interception. That's 1.4 touchdowns, but we'll see. 23 rushing yards. Chuba Hubbard with 65. You really got to get Chuba Hubbard involved in the entire rushing attack. 3 receptions for 19 yards. And then T-Mac, 5 receptions, 61 yards. Hunter Renfrow, 3 for 31. JT Sanders, 3.5 for 3 receptions for 33 yards. No XL. The stock on XL continues to fall in this preview. I'll go to my other slide for this so we can get you guys caught up again. We usually do this live, makes it easier. I say live, I can scroll. On the season, Michael Penix Jr., 40 of 63, 433 yards, only 1 passing touchdown. That's wild. Did not know that. 88.9 rating, 6.9 yards per attempt, 63.5 completion percentage. Bryce Young, 53 of 90. He had 55 pass attempts the last game, 482 yards coming off a career best in yards, 4 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, 74.4 rating, 5.4 yards per attempt, 58.9 completion percentage. A lot of issues with turnovers, not just interceptions, but fumbles, completion percentage. Bijan Robinson is that dude. Leads the Atlanta Falcons in rushing and receiving, 167 yards on the ground, 4.9 yards per carry. No touchdowns yet. Algier with 100 yards and 1 touchdown. And Penix did score 1 on the ground, 20 yards and 1 touchdown. Chuba Hubbard, 95 yards on the season, followed by Bryce Young with 42, a lot of scrambling, and then Rico Dowdle with 21. So not a great start for the rushing attack for the Panthers. Hard to have a good rushing attack when you're down by 20-plus points and having to work your way back. But Bijan Robinson leads the Falcons, like I said, with receiving yards, 125, followed by Drake London with 104. Robinson does have 1 touchdown there, receiving, and then Kyle Pitts with 96. Tedro McMillan with 168, like we said, looking the part. JT Sanders coming alive with 81, and then Chuba Hubbard with 71. On that side, we have the updated injury reports based off of yesterday's practice. And again, you guys will want to monitor this today and through the weekend, depending on when you listen to this. A lot of new folks on here, but for the Falcons, Jamal Agnew did not participate, battling a groin. His game status is to be determined. We'll find out today for a lot of these. Nate Carter had a personal matter. Mike Ford battling a groin. He did not participate. AJ Terrell, that's probably the biggest news for the Panthers and the Falcons, battling a hamstring. He did not participate. Charlie Warner, the tight end, battling an ankle. He also didn't participate. And then your list of limiteds for the Falcons: DeMarco Helms, James Pierce Jr., Kyle Pitts, Casey Washington, and your full participants: Caden Ellis, Darnell Mooney, Jack Nelson. Flipping to the Panthers, we've had a few guys added throughout the week. Bobby Brown III battling a knee, did not participate yesterday. Patrick Jones II, hamstring, did not participate. Not good. Trayvon Merrick, battling an illness, did not participate. Hopefully he'll get through that. And then Turk Wharton, who we know was projected to miss 2 to 4 weeks. We'll see. He did not participate. And XL hamstring soreness came up earlier this week. He has been limited. JC Horn, full go. He just had a rest day. Hunter Renfrow had a rest day. And then Bryson Tremaine with the quad was a full participant as well. All right. Taking a look at the starting rosters. Again, we usually go out to the websites, but not a lot of changes for the Panthers depth chart. Just kidding. It is a little bit on the offense, but Tedero McMillan, Hunter Renfrow, Ike Ekwonu, Damian Lewis. Then we have the change with Cade Mays. The Panthers also signed Nick Samak off of the Baltimore Ravens practice squad. As your backup center, Chandler Zavala, now a starter as well at right guard, and then Taylor Moton. Everything else the same for now. JT Sanders, XL, Xavier Legette, Bryce Young, and Chuba Hubbard. On the defensive side of the ball, we're going to have to see how this plays out. They still have Turk as the starter, but we know he's been out. If he's no-go and Bobby Brown's a no-go, going to have to do some finagling around. Could see a lot more of Jaden Crumeny, probably Ashawn moving over to end, and Cam Jackson even getting into the mix, but we'll see how it plays out once we get to Sunday and get through this injury report. Ashawn Robinson, Derek Brown having every bit of success that we've expected him to, kind of finding his groove, dominating, batting balls down. The Panthers defensive line batted 4 balls down at the line of scrimmage this past week, so positive news there. Pat Jones, Trevin Wallace, like you said, Christian Roseboom. Panthers also signed Maima Njongmeta off of the Bengals practice squad for a linebacker. DJ Wonnum, Mike Jackson, JC Horn, Trayvon Merrick, and Nick Scott, so no change at safety. For the Falcons, Drake London, Jake Matthews, Matthew Berrigan, Ryan Nazul, Chris Lindstrom, Elijah Wilkinson, Charlie Warner, Kyle Pitts Sr., Bijan Robinson, Michael Penix Jr., Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod. Defensively, Leonard Floyd listed as the starter, James Pierce as the backup, David, we'll get to it, Onimeta, defensive line, Brandon Dorless, defensive line, Arnold Ebekatui, oh boy, sorry Falcons fans, Jalen Walker is the backup, Caden Ellis, Divine Diablo, AJ Terrell Jr., again, significant news there, Jesse Bates III, Xavier Watts, Mike Hughes, and Billy Bowman Jr., man, they're getting a lot. You look at that, Billy Bowman Jr., Xavier Watts, throwing in James Pierce Jr., and Jalen Walker, getting a lot of production out of those draft picks, so hats off to the Falcons. I originally was going to go through this, but we're at 33 minutes, so maybe I'll just post this on social media for those that are watching this on YouTube or Spotify. We have our capsule with some of the highlights heading into this game. I've already posted some of these during the week, so I do think we're going to pass by. Let's get into the predictions, final numbers. Right now, and this may have shifted since I captured this 2 days ago, the Falcons have a 57.5% chance to win according to ESPN Analytics. We've been tracking this all year for the Panthers. It's been right. It's 2-0 first 2 games and predicting the Panthers to lose. Panthers have a 42.2% chance to win as of now. Opened up as a 3.5-point favorite, the Atlanta Falcons. That's up to 5.5 from all accounts. It's still 5.5. Over under set at 43.5. So here we go, folks. What exactly are we going to get this week? Do we think that the Carolina Panthers have enough? Do we think that the Carolina Panthers are going to find their groove and get the job done? Do I think they can pull out of this thing victorious? Yes. However, coming into this, I do have the Falcons winning, unfortunately. Now, I think Carolina can do it, but for the sake of giving you guys a solid prediction, I have the Atlanta Falcons 28, Carolina Panthers 17. Let's hope this isn't the case, but if you are still here on Spotify or if you're still here on YouTube, drop those predictions and scores. Let me know what you think. As always, appreciate you guys. Sorry this got out so late. See you guys back on Sunday, maybe a bonus episode on tomorrow, Saturday, or Sunday morning. We'll figure it out. anyways, that's going to do it.